Welcome to Amazon Legends, where we have real stories about making it big on Amazon. Our guests are CEOs of large companies and entrepreneurs who became power sellers, also providers specializing in helping sellers, aggregators that acquire sellers, and former Amazonians will give us an insight from behind the scenes. Here is your host, Nick Urison.
Welcome to another episode of Amazon Legends. My next guest today is a real estate developer turned Amazon seller, selling art supplies, umbrellas, and other kind of items. And today he doesn't do that anymore because he discovered a better world, living a better life. And he's the CEO and co-founder of AmZadvisors, which is a full-service Amazon agency. And when he's not working, he loves mountain biking, working out, and he lives only 30 miles from the town called Tequila. So you can imagine what else he enjoys. So with that, everybody, meet my guest, Mike Begg. Welcome to the show, Mike.
Hey, thank you for having me here, Nick. I really appreciate that intro as well. The tequila part sounds interesting, no?
Well, we were talking just before we started already. I was like in a laughing mode. I figured, life is good when you're laughing, right?
Exactly. 100%. That's true.
Where I'm from, we have a saying, a good laughter is worth in terms of what it does to your body as much as a steak. So
I think the steak might cause some other problems down the road, but you enjoy both of them at the same time, no?
Well, listen, you'll be laughing and happy, and you won't be bothered about those things.
Exactly. There you go.
All right, cool. So you and I tried to figure out what can we talk about that you are very good at so that our listeners can take away good stuff. And I think we found a subject that I think that everybody will appreciate very much. And it's all about growing your revenues and using numbers in the process. So what numbers to look at, and most important, what do you do when those numbers show certain values? If it's up, it's down, and whatever. So with that, first, give us the outline of what it is that you're watching.
So I think there's three things that you need to be looking for on the Amazon side, especially in the area where we work, which is a lot of consumables. You really got to look at how you're building your Amazon funnel, what your customer acquisition costs are, and what your customer lifetime value is, because all of that is going to tell you how profitable you're being and how much you can actually scale up.
Okay, cool. So here is the agenda then. So we're going to first talk about building your funnel. That's the first step. And what are the numbers? What are the metrics? And what do you do with those metrics? Then we're going to move on to measuring your customer acquisition cost. That means how much is it costing you to get one customer? And again, what are the numbers? What are the metrics? And then what is good number? What is not so good number? And how to make them better? And then the last one is, what is the lifetime customer value? Assuming that you're selling products where customers come back and buy more and more of, either the same or something else. But what is that value that they spend with you over the time that they remain a customer? And again, what is a good number? What is a bad number? Of course, there is no single answer to these questions, but we're going to discuss scenarios. So with that, let's jump right in. Building the funnel. Let's start from the top. I'm a new seller and I want to build my funnel. Walk us through, what am I doing and what am I watching?
Look, it's funny you said start at the top, because that's really where a funnel starts. At the top is people actually finding your brand. The concept of a funnel is, how do I bring as many people in? And then as it comes down, I'm going to lose people, I'm going to attract more people. And finally, I'm going to have conversions at the bottom. So again, to break down the different levels of the funnel, you have brand awareness, you have consideration, and then you have conversions. And slightly below that, you have loyalty, which is recurring customers. When you're starting on the Amazon platform as a new seller, typically it's best to start at the conversion level. There's a lot of, I mean, we know why people go to Amazon, they go to buy there. The conversion rates are higher than other platforms like their own website. So the entire goal here is to focus on, assuming that you already don't have a brand when you're launching on Amazon or you don't have brand recognition, focusing on non-generic keyword or non-branded keywords or generic keywords to help you actually convert people that are looking for a specific product, but not searching by a specific brand name. So a good example of this could be, I have a water bottle in front of me. So I'm going to say Nalgene water bottle is not the same as water bottle. Someone searching for water bottle is not looking for a specific brand. They're interested in whatever water bottle that shows up. So by advertising on that generic keyword at the bottom of the conversion funnel, you have the potential to capture a customer through conversion that way. Someone searching for Nalgene wants to buy Nalgene. So advertising on that keyword when you're focused on conversions is going to lead to a low return on investment or low ROAS. And it's just not the best use of your money. So that would be the first step. Building up from there, you obviously want to move into the next level of the funnel, which is consideration. So how do you get people that are looking at other competitor products within your category to your product listing page? And you can achieve that with product targeting ads, category targeting ads, both on sponsored product and sponsored display side. So when people are going to competitor SKUs, they're finding your product and coming back to you. Another good way to do it would be sponsored brands product targeting is another possibility to do it there. So those are all the options to get people going that are in category looking at competitor products to come to your listing and consider your product. And that's the consideration phase. And then when you move up beyond that, you are at brand awareness. Is how do I make people know that my brand even exists? And the main way to do that on the Amazon platform is going to be with sponsored brands and sponsored display. The sponsored display audience targeting is probably one of the best ways that you can start attracting more people to your listings or to your brand on the Amazon platform, at least make them aware. But typically, again, it's not going to convert as well as the bottom of the funnel, the generic searches or the people searching for your brand. Once you built that brand awareness, those are going to be where you get the best ROAS, and then your ROAS is going to decrease as you move up the funnel. But all of this pulls together into helping you acquire as many customers as possible.
Okay. All right. So you describe the different levels of being found and then making the purchase.
Yes.
So the first one is position yourself with your advertising and also with your content in terms of your appearance under generic keywords.
Yes.
Right. So that means that you're going to bid on a keyword that is relevant to what you're selling, and your listing will appear. So what number are you watching as a measure of success, of how well you've done that?
So this is where we really get into talking about some of the things we're going to talk about a little bit later, but it depends on what type of product you have and what your business model is. The main thing to consider is whether your products are consumable or whether they are something that a customer purchases once. If you have a product that a customer is purchasing once, you're probably going to be focused on profitability on each individual sale that you get on the platform. And because of that, you're going to need to really pay attention to what your ROAS, what your ACoS, and what your conversion rates are on the advertising you're running for each individual keyword. When you are running a consumable product business model, so examples of this are supplements, cosmetics, food, some baby products, some pet products, where customers keep coming back and purchasing your product, then is where you start looking at what is my customer lifetime value, because that will tell you how much you can spend on advertising to acquire a new customer. So they're very different answers depending on the way that you're running your business or how your business model will work at the end of the day. But in general, you're going to be looking at, for metrics, conversion rates, ROAS and ACoS, and cost per clicks to determine what is the right numbers for you to focus on, or when to make sure that you should scale up a keyword or scale back on a keyword.
Okay. So this is a high-level approach to the numbers where in a period of time, say in 30 days, how much did you spend in advertising dollars and how much did you generate in sales from those advertised listings? And at the same time, as you sell, obviously you rank up, and then part of your sales come organically.
Yeah.
And then how much you generated in total sales. So that's where the ACOS is the reverse of ROAS, or vice versa. Same thing. That means you spend $1 in advertising, you generated $3 in advertised listings. And then, but you got another $2 worth of sales organically. So it's your total sales is $5. So it's $1 spent versus $5. So that's the takeoffs. So that's the high level. Now, you mentioned cost per click. That means that you're taking the total ad spend and dividing by the total number of clicks that you received in that campaign, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And just to elaborate on that, the cost per click becomes important again when you're looking at what type of business model you have and what your conversion rates are. If you're converting high on a keyword that has a high cost per click, it's still worthwhile advertising on, versus if you're converting poorly on a keyword that has a high cost per click, it's probably something you don't want to focus dollars on.
Okay. Now you add, the minute that you mentioned that, now I think of another complexity that I think gets it harder to track. So now, looking at that whole thing, we understand that. You can go pick up the numbers and then look at it. First and foremost, I say this to everyone, tell me if you agree. Looking at that number doesn't mean anything. You have to be looking at it over time, right?
Yeah.
So that you can see. So that's where it gets a little bit more complicated, because now you're talking about picking up the data and then storing and then turning it into some kind of a graph and whatever. But that's what you have to do, right? You can't be looking at it, once in a while.
Yeah. Any one moment in time is not what's important. It's how the trends are going over time. And you mentioned some of the other metrics that are important to consider. And again, it depends on your business model, but total ACOS or total ROAS is important as well, because it'll determine whether you're being profitable on each sale you're making, or whether if you average the cost of advertising over all your sales, whether you're still making a margin. But again, these are all metrics you need to track over time. And it does get complex. Amazon doesn't make it easy for you to do that.
Oh.
It takes a lot of data processing to be able to get those answers.
Yeah. Okay. The other thing that you mentioned, which happens to be my favorite subject, is conversion rate. So conversion rate is the magic bullet, or they say a cure to all illnesses. If your conversion rate is high, you'll be laughing all the way to the bank. If it's not, then you're going to be struggling. So define what is conversion rate and where do you find it?
Sure. So conversion rate within Amazon, it's on the business reports. You can find it under the unit session percentage. That's the most accurate that you're going to get for overall sales. You can also find it in the advertising reports to actually calculate what your conversions are. But to calculate conversions on your own, it's essentially the total sessions that are coming to the page, and it's divided. It's the total orders divided by the total sessions, which is going to give you your conversion rate. So that's how many times people are coming to your page and how many times they're actually purchasing the product.
Okay, so you've got 4 things there.
Yeah.
So first of all, conversion rate, you go to business reports and you'll see unit session percentage. That really is not true conversion.
Yep.
It is the number of pieces ordered divided by number of visitors that came to the page. So if somebody bought 3 pieces, you're going to get 300% conversion. Well, where in the world do you have 300%? Well, guess what? On Amazon, it exists, except that that doesn't help you because it's not the measure. And so that's one thing you mentioned. The other one you mentioned is the advertising. The number that you see in advertising reports, that's your conversion for the advertising performance.
Exactly.
So, well, that doesn't really help you. because that's just half the story. And frankly, the bigger half and the better half is the organic, right? So because ultimately, I don't mean in terms of conversion, I mean
Yeah.
in terms of traffic, because that's what we are all trying to build up, right? Organic rank will reduce your dependency on advertising. So so tell me, what do you think?
No, I agree. I mean, they are different metrics, and the way Amazon calculates them is not always clear either. You're right. Unit session percentage is not a clear metric on what your actual conversion rates are because of the examples you just gave. At the same time, advertising to me is a more complete. The conversion rate numbers in advertising are more complete than just using the overall account data, because it's specific to where you're spending dollars. I mean, Amazon over time has shifted more and more to an advertising pay-to-play platform. So making sure that you're optimizing for conversion rates on advertising is really where we focus a lot of our effort. Because if we're spending money and we're not getting the sales at the end of the day, then it's going to be a problem. So that's really where we focus. The other number you talked about is the organic side, which would be essentially subtracting clicks and ad sales to calculate an organic conversion rate. That is also challenging. It's kind of possible through the search term report. The brand search term report, not the advertising search term report, where you can actually see how things are moving down through the funnel and how you're converting compared to your competitors. So there are ways to get the data, but again, it's a variety of different metrics and everybody has their own preferences on what they focus on.
Yeah. In addition, you have to be doing it on daily basis so that you can look at it over time. So getting one report for 1 week and another report for a month, and that doesn't mean anything. So it's a disciplined approach you have to be collecting, right?
Exactly. And every adjustment you make, again, we focus heavily on advertising, but every adjustment we make on the advertising side, we need to actually analyze afterwards. All right, how did this affect conversion rates? Did it improve? Did it decrease? There's a whole lot of the other factors that go into it. But yes, if you're not monitoring it on a frequent basis, you're not going to be able to see what's really performing or what's not performing.
Yeah. Now, one other thing here that you have to be doing is keeping a record of what it is that you're doing in conjunction with the impact that those things are having. In other words, when you look at your data, you see the chart going up and down, you've got to have a record of something somewhere where you say, oh, well, this is what I had done over here. Oh, this is what, right? So you need to be able to have some kind of correlation between what you've done and what it impacted. So you've got to be taking notes all the time and marking them, and so that way you can make an educated decision next time. Repeat what's working and stop doing what you're not doing, both as an agency as well as a seller, right?
Yeah, exactly. And you actually bring up another good point in that conversion rate is also highly impacted by what the listing actually looks like. So irregardless of making bid changes or keyword changes on the advertising campaign side, the way you change your images or the way that you change your titles or whatever can actually have an impact on the conversion rate significantly. So you're right. It's A/B testing the content you have on your listing, as well as seeing how bid adjustments are affecting conversion rates and sales. So there's a lot of moving parts at this all at the same time, and it requires, like as we've said a few times now, it requires a lot of data analysis capabilities to actually be able to track what changes are impacting what numbers.
Yeah. Now, remember you said 4 things, and I only covered 2 of them. So there's 2 more. The third one you mentioned is the true conversion. I just want to clarify for our listeners that the way you measure conversion is you take the number of orders, divide by number of visitors to the page. So that means from the business reports, you can get number of orders, and then at the same time, you get number of sessions for that time period, and then you divide one by the other. So, and if you actually do this, you are going to see the relationship between USP and CR, because they won't be the same.
Yes.
And yeah, we see this all the time, right?
And another interesting one now, I mean, we can keep going deeper on this. When you're actually talking about true conversion rates, if you're looking at the business reports, the number that you really need are not the I forgot the name of the column, but it is the ASIN orders versus the brand orders. So for example, your ad might drive a sale on another product that you have in your catalog, but that's not the true conversion rate of your product. That's the conversion rate that your ad is driving overall. So if we really want to dive down another level, you need to look at the actual number of orders that your ad is driving for that specific SKU versus the orders it's driving for other brands or other ASINs, excuse me. So yeah, I mean, again, we're talking about a whole different level of complexity when it comes to measuring this, but yeah, it does have a big impact on everything.
Yeah. Okay. The fourth thing that I caught was the calculation of the organic conversion versus the paid. So there's actually there are 4 buckets altogether.
Yeah.
First is the conversion rate of your advertised sales. That one is reported on advertising report. We can get that all day long. And then you have your total, which you get from business reports. Okay, we understand that. It's fine. But the difference between the two is not your organic, because there is a third player. And that third player is the external traffic.
Yeah.
So if you're running a Google
Ads
ad,
on other
you've got
platforms,
your mailing, your influencers, you name it, stuff that comes directly to your product page and makes a purchase, that's your external traffic. So that's the third, and the fourth is the total. So so you got paid, external, organic, total. What in my book, if I'm gonna monitor numbers, I'm going to monitor true conversion on all 4. Right?
Yeah, no, it's a good idea. And yeah, I mean, that's something I hadn't considered. If you're using external traffic sources, you do have another conversion rate that you need to take into effect.
Don't you advocate driving external traffic?
Of course, but
Of
at the
course.
same time, it's when we're talking about someone starting on the Amazon platform, usually you don't start with external traffic. You start with what's coming into the platform already. But you made a good point there.
Oh, now you and I have a difference in opinion. I like this kind of conversation. The right time to drive external traffic is right at the beginning. You know why? Because you have no established conversion rates to upset.
Yeah.
Number one. Number two, depending on the kind of external traffic you're driving, if you have your mailing list, if you have good social media following, it's free, right? Go and then offer a discount and say, look, I just launched my listing. Come give me your opinion, whatever, make a purchase. Here's a coupon, whatever. So you're going to do that. And when you do it, why not measure, right? So what do you think about that approach?
I think it makes sense if you already have the mailing list, if you have the money to invest. If we're talking to someone that's trying to build their brand for the first time, the highest converting traffic you can drive is going to be within the Amazon platform advertising. External traffic is not going to convert as high of a rate. So unless you already have free resources, like you said, or free sources like email lists or chatbot lists or whatever it may be, you're still going to need to rely on the Amazon platform. So yeah, the more capital you have, the more investment you have, the more people you can drive from outside, the better. But again, it's not going to have the same impact for people that only have a limited budget getting started on Amazon and need to focus on driving as many conversions as possible, which is going to be Amazon ads all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in total agreement with you. At the end of the day, nothing converts better than the paid Amazon traffic, and you're going to get the most without a doubt. I had a guest several episodes ago, and his name is Matt Atkins. So he's a seller, and I recommend everybody to go check out his episode. You know what he did? He had a great strategy. He created a significant amount of following in specific user groups.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And these user groups were full of passionate people about launching products and supporting each other. So they have this collective approach to launching products where if one said, okay, even before launch, they would give feedback. And then after launch, they would go, he would drive traffic from these specific user groups. So of course, that's external traffic. And, there are many ways. You have the brand referral bonus program, blah, blah. But just as you put it, if you have either budget or you do have following, that's what you need. I don't recommend anybody spending Facebook ads or anything like that, any paid ads to drive external traffic at the beginning myself. And I doubt very much you favor that idea, right?
Yeah, no, it's just too much. The return on it's too low. You're going to blow through your advertising dollars before you even get off the ground, especially if you have a limited budget. And I think you point out another good example is that there are so many different ways to drive external traffic to Amazon. And we could talk about that for days. Link building, groups, email lists, like external ads, TikTok, social media. There's so many different ways to drive traffic to Amazon from outside. But again, as a seller getting started with a limited budget, just use Amazon ads. You're going to get conversions no matter what.
I want to introduce Sellcore to all my listeners. As you all know, it's essential to add another selling channel to Amazon. Even though Walmart is the natural addition, you need the know-how to hit the ground running. Sellcore is a Walmart-approved agency for launching and scaling Amazon brands on Walmart, and even getting you into Walmart stores. They manage over 400 brands and 100,000 products. They were kind enough to offer my listeners a free comprehensive audit and a $500 statement credit. Visit www.sellcore.co/legends and mention Amazon Legends to activate this offer. But do it quickly because this offer may not last long. www.sellcore.co/legends. So as far as building the funnel, the four numbers, when I say four numbers, you've got to at least be aware, if you're not driving any external, fine. But if you are, you've got to measure the performance of your external, paid, organic, and the total, if you can. It's very hard because data is spread. However, it's possible. And I know of at least one SaaS platform that provides that. It's something to be aware of. Okay, great. So now let's move on to the second one, customer acquisition costs. So tell us about that.
So customer acquisition cost is essentially how much you're spending to acquire a new customer. Again, this depending on how many different sources you're using, this can be easy or it can be more complicated. Typically with Amazon, you're just going to be looking at how much you're spending before you convert a new customer, which has its own limitations on the Amazon advertising platform because you need to be able to see new to brand purchases, which is only available in sponsored brands right now. Maybe I'm not positive about sponsored display. But anyway, you need to see how much you're spending to acquire a new customer and how many of the new customers purchasing are actually new to brand. That's going to help you calculate what your customer acquisition cost is over time. And that is going to play into how profitable you can be as a brand or how much you can go out to spend to acquire new customers.
So what is the way to calculate the customer acquisition cost? Looking at you're referring to the advertising reports, right?
Yep. Again, yeah, because there's no real easy way to calculate this from the business reports or some of the other reports available. If you're looking at what your customer acquisition cost is going to be, for example, on sponsored brands, you're going to look at how much you're spending, what your conversion rate is, and then what your percentage of purchases are new to brand consumers. And that's going to help you calculate what you're actually acquiring a customer for on the Amazon platform. There's a variety of other numbers that you can start with. If you have an outside platform, you already have an idea of what your customer acquisition costs are, or you have something to compare what your Amazon customer acquisition costs are. compared to what the, Facebook ads or Google ads or whatever else you're running. And then from there, you can kind of make, if needed, a blended adjustment on what the two numbers are to help you determine where you should spend more advertising dollars or how much is actually costing you overall to acquire new customers for your brand.
Yeah, because Amazon does not give you the customer information. I guess if you are technically oriented, you can get the customer IDs and things like that, but it goes beyond just advertising report, because ultimately, what is the customer acquisition cost? You have your existing customers and you have your new customers, right?
Yeah.
And so that separation is very hard to make on Amazon.
Yes.
You need to have like internal systems and then new data coming in. And then you look at your total advertising spend and then divide it by those numbers, right?
Yes, the conversion rates, the new to brand consumers is really the only way that you can actually measure it on Amazon. So you have to factor that into what your overall orders are. And again, this is one of the challenges with Amazon, is that you can only calculate it from that standpoint on the ad side. But at the same time, that is the most important way to calculate it, because that's where you're spending money on Amazon. Everyone else coming to your product and purchasing organically is not going to cost as much, or it's not going to cost anything for you. So essentially, by calculating your ad side, you can then budget and figure out how much more you need to spend on the ad side to acquire a certain number of customers. And again, like we said, customer loyalty is last, but it's ultimately going to determine your profitability.
Well, obviously there are limitations here, because without the data, there's only so much you can do. I like to do as much as I can to get as close as possible to the reality, primarily because it's like shipping. Like, for example, imagine not Amazon, but you're selling through your website. If you're buying something for $3 and then you price it $10 and you say, okay, I'm going to sell through my website. And you say, okay, I know I'm going to spend so much on advertising and blah, blah. And my shipping, is going to be, say, 10%. Well, guess what? First of all, that percentage that you will spend on bringing business to your website, that's never flat. And in fact, it usually goes on the other side, where it ends up costing you more. Now, if you kind of narrow it down and say, okay, this is how much I'm going to pay, like in the case of Amazon, 15%, right? So for most categories, 15%. That's a great advantage, because you narrowed it down to 15% fixed. Same thing for FBA fee. It's fixed, same thing. These are huge advantages. Now, apply that lack of that to your website. If you miscalculate or underestimate the shipping portion, that is where the profit ends up. So that's why I don't like assumptions where I say, okay, this is the biggest part of it, so therefore, if I have an idea about this, then that's good enough for me. That's why I don't like it. So I keep searching. In the case of Amazon, what can you do, right? So you have to go with whatever is available, which is what you're suggesting. But I still try and figure out how to get this so that you can be as close to what the true cost is, because those things will make a big difference, and that will allow you to spend more money or reduce some of your spending, right?
For sure. And I think that's, you bring up a really good point, in that we don't have access to everything. So we, as an agency, rely a lot on our customers' data from their own website on what their acquisition costs. And then we can kind of use that as a benchmark to get to guide our advertising decisions on the Amazon platform. We can see where our current sponsored brand customer acquisition cost or new customer acquisition cost is, and we can compare it to what their experience on their website. And from there, we know whether we have more space to be more aggressive, if we need to scale back, or if we need to make other adjustments. So because of the lack of data on Amazon, you do need to rely on outside sources to kind of compare how your performance actually is.
Yeah. There are other ways to get the data. Like, for example, you do have in Amazon's unified reporting, you do have some customer data. So you can kind of try to find your way into those to see how many new customers you got every month or in any time frame, and then compare that against what you had. But it will require some work. It's not just for anybody who just knows a little bit of Excel, right?
Yeah, there's tools you can use for that, and it's very helpful to be able to calculate it like that. You're talking about essentially being able to code and build your own API connection to extract the data and process it at volume, especially if you're doing a high volume of sales. Yeah, that takes a certain level of technical skills that most business owners don't have.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can download the reports just to see it on it. This is not something you have to track on daily basis, but if the sellers were to invest in putting some kind of reporting to identify, what are my existing, how many customers I had before this month, and how many unique ones I have now. They don't disclose email address or anything like that, obviously, but they do have customer IDs. And those customer IDs are included in the reports. And from that, you can pick it up and do something with. Okay, so let's talk about the other aspect of this. So let's say that your customer acquisition cost fairly. So what do you do with it? How do you use it?
So I've kind of alluded to it, but customer acquisition is one part of the equation. The other part of the equation is customer lifetime value, or how many times customers are coming back to purchase the product from you. When you know what your customer lifetime value is and your customer acquisition cost, if you subtract the customer acquisition cost from the customer lifetime value, you essentially end up with the profit that you're making per customer. When you know all of these numbers and you know what your customer acquisition cost is, you know how much more you can spend out to go get more customers and how much profit that's going to lead to over time. So that's essentially the way that you're going to be leveraging the customer acquisition number, is making sure, obviously, that you're making money on the platform, but that you're able to then go figure out what you can even see this down to a keyword level if you want to, where you can actually go out and acquire customers or spend more money to acquire more customers to help you grow the brand over time, because every customer you acquire is going to lead to X amount of profit for them coming into essentially your business's ecosystem.
Okay, so the purpose of the customer acquisition cost is really to establish that as one of the deductions that will come off of your lifetime customer value. So let's then define the lifetime customer value, and then let's discuss how people can get it.
Yeah. So the customer lifetime value is essentially how many times a customer is purchasing a product from you. And it may be that they're purchasing different products within your catalog. So you could have a good example of this might be like a food product. A customer might purchase one ASIN at one point, but they might come back and purchase 2 other flavors of something in the future. All of that is your customer lifetime value. And you acquired this customer through advertising. They liked your product. And then every product they buy from you after that point is calculated within their customer lifetime value. So the way to do this, and again, it's not easy, you alluded to it, is downloading the reports and looking at the customer IDs and seeing how many customers are purchasing the product again. There's software that can help you do this, but that is essentially how you would have to arrive at it. You would have to manually process the data if you weren't using a software to see which customers are purchasing more products within, or which customers are showing up more than once within your order reports to see the customer lifetime value or the number of purchases that they're making of your branded goods over time.
Okay, so this one is a little bit easier to calculate. Yeah, right, because you download your total order report and add up the total. You can even pull it up from the dashboard, but total sales ultimately. And where it gets tricky is you've got to be able to identify that customer ID in those reports, and then create a list of distinct customer IDs.
Customers, yeah.
You don't need to know who they are. What's the number? So if you receive 1,000 orders and it's 700 distinct customer IDs, well, there you go. So
Yeah.
you have 700 customers. You divide that by divide the total orders by that. That's your lifetime value. So okay, even though we say lifetime value is, that's not the profit you're making, right? So because everything will come out of that, your cost, merchandise and commissions and blah blah. So do you do anything with that net customer value versus the gross customer value?
Net of all the other expenses and costs that come with it.
Yeah.
For us, I mean, as an agency, we don't have access into all the data points from our clients' profitability perspective. I mean, specific to Amazon, yes, but off platform, when we're coming up with the overall e-commerce customer lifetime value or net customer profit, because at a certain point, it's possible for customers to leave Amazon and go purchase the product from your website, which is adding a whole nother level of complexity, actually getting to the true numbers of customer lifetime value. So when we focus on acquiring customers, we're really focusing on how much inventory we're turning over time from customers purchasing the product again. Because at the end of the day, the more inventory turns we have, the more cash we have to reinvest into the business, and the faster we can grow the business from that standpoint. So from a net customer lifetime value standpoint, that would be your true profit, but that's not something that we as an agency specifically focus on. We focus more on the sales and marketing aspects and just trying to acquire as many customers for you at as profitable a number as we can.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just a few minutes ago, you pointed to how to use the customer acquisition cost, and that needed the lifetime customer value. So right here, there's a metric, right? And that's customer acquisition cost divided by lifetime customer value. What is that number? 12%, 13%, 14%, 20%. Right. So
yeah,
that's a metric. Now that metric is a metric to track over time. Because if it's flat, that's good. If it's reducing, that's better. If it's increasing, that's no good. So right there is another metric to stay on top of, which is not the perfect metric, but in perspective, it will give you an idea, right?
Yeah, I mean, it'll definitely give you an idea. It's not a metric that I've considered using before, but that's a good way to look at it as well. It would help you track things over time on your performance there. So that is another metric you could look at to measure your performance.
Yeah, so customer acquisition cost divided by lifetime value, which both of which will require other calculations in order to get it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we're talking about like doing this at a high level of data processing. There's a lot of third-party softwares out there. We have our own software that we use internally, but these are calculations that would take us hours to be able to do at scale. So leveraging software is probably the most important thing to help you arrive to a lot of these numbers and be able to actually calculate it in the most efficient way as possible.
And by the way, these are high value actions you can take for your organization to get the right data and process it and then organize it the right way. That's going to keep paying over and over. I always advocate, and it is not something to outsource to some, offshore VA, because it's not their subject. So, and I'm not sure that if there is any software that will provide everything we discussed. I doubt very much. Mainly because the data isn't available. Amazon does not make it available. However, these are the facts. If you want to know as a percentage how much you're spending compared to how much a customer is paying you, and that's a no-brainer when you look at it like that. So with that information, what can you do? There's all kinds of things you can do. First of all, you know that there's no money to advertise if you are not making enough, or if you're making plenty, you can advertise more, expand more, and things like that.
Yeah.
Oh, it's great. So give us an overall, tie it all together for us. So we mentioned building the funnel, customer acquisition cost, and then lifetime customer value. How does this play out for a new seller?
For a new seller, so I mean, starting at the very bottom, you want to build the funnel, and we recommend building the funnel in reverse, conversions, and then up through consideration, up to brand awareness. Once you have the funnel in place, you want to start calculating these numbers so you actually know what they are. And then from there, you're going to be able to start leveraging them to make better decisions from your business, whether you should go out, acquire more customers, whether your acquisition costs right now are too high, you need to bring them down, a variety of different decisions that are going to help you make better strategic decisions and tactical decisions on what to actually do on the Amazon platform. So for a new seller, you're going to need to really focus on the fundamentals. Again, conversions to start with, and then from there, you can start getting more and more advanced as you start making more progress in the platform.
Yeah. So there's one other aspect of this overall situation, Mike. How much time is enough? Because you can't start measuring customer acquisition costs or lifetime value or anything as a new seller. So you have to give it enough time. And the most hurtful part is spend enough money in advertising so that you have enough data that you can look at, right? So what is a good timeline to take some of these key actions?
So at a minimum, I mean, you're going to want to look at what the useful lifespan of your product is as a consumable good. So for example, if you have a coffee product, how many scoops of coffee am I going to get it from this? Another good metric to potentially look at is subscribe and save. If you have the ability to enroll products, that usually takes a little bit more sales history. But typically, you're going to probably need at least 6 months, I would say, of data to be able to have anything actually actionable to make decisions off of. It's going to tell you a lot whether customers are coming back to you, whether you're seeing repeat purchases or not, which is a good sign that customers are happy with your product. But yeah, you're going to need a significant body of data, and there's different ways to acquire it. The more you can advertise, as you said, the faster you can gather this data, and the better and the quicker you can make these decisions. But for most sellers, that is usually going to take at least a few months to be able to get to the point where you have enough data to actually make an actionable decision from.
Yeah. Well, one other thing here to consider is some of that data does not become available after a certain period of time. Yeah. So the point is, you can't say, okay, fine, I'm launching today. As we record this, it's almost roughly beginning of August 2023. So I launched today, give it 6 months. So that brings me to February. So I don't have to do anything until February. Just go, we've got the budget, push, and then gather enough. And then come February 2024, okay, let's go get the data. Well, guess what? The advertising data is not going to be available anymore for you, right? Because it's only 2 months. Yeah. So these are the things. Business reports available for 2 years, but advertising reports, after 2 months, you can't select the date anymore. So what you have to do is start collecting the data right from the get-go, ideally, so that when you look at it, you can see the full life, history of whatever it is that you've done with that listing. Right?
Yeah, no, that's completely true. And that's specifically why we rely on data extraction and databases to be able to handle this at scale. As a new seller, I mean, you can download the reports every month if you want to, but the reality is there's so many different reports on the advertising side. For you to be able to have all of them and be able to get as granular as you want, it's nearly impossible. You would have to download a report essentially every single day to get the data that you want over time. To give you the ability to get as granular to look at, 7-day periods or 3-day periods or whatever it may be. So when you have the ability to invest in something that will allow you to collect the data and store the data so you can analyze it back, I recommend doing that. because for the exact reason you said, you only have 6 months of ad data, or 60 days of ad data. And when you lose that ad data, you lose it forever, which is going to be a huge disadvantage when it comes to tracking what your acquisition costs are, what your cost per click costs are, what your conversion rates are over time, because all of that is important to tell you what you're doing right on the platform and what you're doing wrong.
Yeah. And also, if you do hire an agency like AmZadvisors and they come in the picture, well, the first thing that you guys are going to want to look at is the history. And you only got two months.
Yeah.
It's not, especially if it's a seasonal product and the season has just started. What does that mean? Nothing. So it's a good idea to keep gathering the data, even though you're doing nothing with it. And of course, there's God knows, I don't know how many versions of the reports exist. Each one of them, keep, saving. It's going to be a lot, but
yeah,
it doesn't matter. It's better than not having it, right?
Yeah, it's better than not having it. I mean, we can make do with the data we do have access to. But again, the longer we have, the longer history we have of data, the faster we're going to be able to make adjustments to your account, to your performance, and really help you achieve the results you're looking for. So again, yeah, it is a great idea to be able to have the data.
Yeah. Well, this was an intense conversation, huh?
We talked a lot about math and about calculations and data extraction and analysis. Yeah, my brain's a little tired after all of this.
Well, I mean, you've given us the right things to do. And I like to know, as they say, you can't improve what you cannot measure, right? So, and measuring needs the information. So I think that I know a lot of sellers just want to sell. Okay, advertise here, advertise, sell. Yeah, but okay, you need to look at the numbers. The reason why Amazon became so successful is because this company makes data-driven decisions.
Exactly.
Better yet, they automate them. So that means that machines are running the company and people are just making it better and better. So the day-to-day business runs based on what the data shows, and nobody has to do anything, so that you can actually work on the business to make it better and bigger. And that's why they grew so far.
Yeah, and you just made a really good point in that, in my view, and from the hundreds of brands that we've worked with, the ones that are actually focused on the data and focused on the metrics and the actual performance, and the ones that get granular, are the ones that last a long time on Amazon, versus the ones that are just like, do what you have to do. Like, they don't want to be hands-on. They don't want to understand their numbers. It's great if you're good at designing, if you're good at developing products, that's an awesome skill. But you really need to have a handle on your data and understand how it informs all the decisions that are happening within your account to be able to last in the Amazon platform in the long term, because things are constantly changing. And if you're relying on information that you have from even 2 years ago or even a year ago, it's probably already outdated.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, imagine, we don't like wars, but wars are necessary evils, and countries go to war and have done this throughout the history. Well, nobody goes to war without gathering intelligence about the enemy, about what's happening, blah, blah, right? So intelligence drives success. That's what it is. So business is war. There's no difference, except that nobody dies, hopefully. So, but it's still, there are books written called Business is War, or things like that. So it's what it is. Without information, you can't make decisions. Well, Mike, let's now talk a little bit lighter. Not that it would be light, but your life. So what I'm interested in is your early life experiences. So tell us, where did you grow up? Let's start with that.
So I originally grew up in Connecticut, about an hour from New York City. I went to college in New York, came back to Connecticut after college. And I pretty much lived in Connecticut up until I was about 25, 26. After college, I got a job at Deloitte. From there, I got into real estate development, as you mentioned on the intro. And after a while, I was working at Sears in real estate development, and I realized that retail was changing, e-commerce was coming, and that's kind of how I made the shift over to e-commerce. And that's more or less like what got me to where I am today with the agency.
Well, I mean, you started a company, first of all, right? You're not working in an agency. This is your company, and you co-founded it. That means you are an entrepreneur. You are a risk taker. So
Sure.
What I want to know is, when was the first time that you realized you like taking risks as a kid?
I don't know that I would ever say that it's like that I enjoy taking risk. It's that I enjoyed new experiences when I was little. Like I never grew up being, I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to have my own business, things like that. I never thought about that. It was always for me more that I want to experience something different, or I want to try something new and see if I like it or not. And that is kind of what led me to become an entrepreneur in a way, in that I was working in a corporate job. It was a great paying job, but like something still wasn't sitting correctly. Like I wasn't experiencing what it's like to work for yourself, or what it is to have freedom, or to go travel, or go be somewhere else, work on your own schedule. I mean, a whole variety of different reasons. And that's more what pushed me to be an entrepreneur than anything. Just wanting to have more freedom and to have the ability to have more experiences. So yeah, I don't think it was ever any one moment in general that was like, I enjoy this. It was just generally over time wanting to experience more and more.
And what is it that why did you want to experience new things? I mean, as human beings, as you know, we don't like change, right? Most people don't like change.
Yeah.
It's outside their element, and then they feel uncomfortable. So, but here you are as a kid, you wanted new experiences.
Yeah.
Why do you think that was the case in your case?
One of the things to me that I've always prioritized is learning. And I think one of the best ways to learn is to try new things, whether it be learning a new language or learning something new in school. I pushed myself hard to learn in high school, into college, where I got multiple degrees. So I think it was just the idea of wanting to learn, and the way to learn is by experiencing new things, or at least that's the way that I learn the best, is by actually doing something, trying it, see what I get out of it. And then from there, I've learned something new about whether I like the experience or not. So that desire to constantly be learning, constantly be improving is really what pushes me to try new things and to deal with change. I mean, you're right. No one's comfortable with change, but at the same time, change is sometimes necessary to improve who you are, improve the way you work, or improve the way you do things. And instead of fighting it, it's always, in my opinion, better to just embrace it.
Yeah. Did you grow up in an academic kind of family where people were into learning?
No, not necessarily. I mean, my parents both went to college and got degrees, but I don't think it was ever, I mean, they encouraged me to do well in school, but apart from that, there was nothing really behind it that, made me say I need to do, go to certain schools or study certain things. It was more that I always had an interest in learning how things work, or how systems work. I studied economics and international relations. So those are both studies about systems. One is about economic systems, one is about power systems. So it's just always things I've been fascinated by, is how does the world work? How does this all actually run? And yeah, I mean, that's kind of where my, I guess, onus of learning came from.
So there was nobody who was that you looked up to, who was into always learning, investigating, studying stuff, that you took as a role model?
I would say that from the standpoint of learning, no. From the standpoint of being an entrepreneur, I mean, my grandparents were entrepreneurs. They had their own businesses on both sides of my family. And I think that was something that I probably always looked up to when I was little. I didn't see it as, a learning experience at the time. I saw it as, they're kind of in control of their own lives, or they're making decisions that are going to impact their own lives. And I think that they were people I looked up to. It's obviously a scary world to have your own business and be an entrepreneur, as you know. And yeah, I think that those were more of the types of people I looked up to than, someone encouraging me to learn. I think I personally took learning as a way to try to accelerate my knowledge to be on a similar level.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there is definitely these influences. I share something with you. It's funny. When I was a kid, my mother didn't like me going out playing in the street.
Yeah.
She wanted me to stay home, and she said, I'll get you any toy you want, but you're not going out. You play at home. So I don't know if that was a good thing or a bad thing, but regardless, it kind of gave me a little bit of an upper hand, for not because I demanded, but she felt responsible. She had to get me toys, because now they're like, she won't let me go out. So those days also, Legos had just become fairly popular. Everybody has Legos, but they were expensive. So she buys me this imitation Lego type game.
Yeah.
But it was imitation, but different concept. As you know, with Lego, you have these pieces, and then you have the plan, then you put them together. This thing came with screws and nuts and bolts and little platforms with holes, so that you would make things.
Yeah.
Like make a car, make a truck, or whatever. But it had little tools and little things. So that's what you had to do. It was a pain in the neck to do, because my fingers would hurt, because so anyway, you know what? That made me an engineer.
Yeah. That's one way to learn. I mean, when you have an experience like that stands out to you so much. I think one of the other things that you actually made me think about a little bit is that my mom was second generation in the US. Her mom immigrated to the US. So I think she grew up with an experience of like having to have job security or having to have things a certain way. And you just do this because this is what you do. This is what my parents came here for. And like, I looked at it from a different perspective, in that they came here for a new experience, something different, something new. So why not have new experiences? So I think in a way it also kind of pushed me, or the difference of seeing what my grandparents did, and then my mom pushing me away from doing that kind of pushed me actually towards doing it. So
yeah, because I mean, I'm listening to you, and this is, I see this all the time, including myself. Our early life experiences, people we look up to, things that we suffered through, things we enjoy, whatever, they all form our future interests somehow. And then I've seen this over and over. In fact, I had a guest, this wasn't so much his early life, but still considered early. He worked in a company. He was like an intern in a company, and then they sent him to a company which was an incubator. And this incubator he loved working there, because all these people, new ideas. And for those who've been in incubators, you can just walk into somebody's office and say, listen, I'm trying to do this. I need some ideas. You don't know these people. You don't pay them. They're not employees. They're trying to build their own idea. And so that's the thing. But guess what he does today?
I don't know.
He runs multiple organizations. It's called accelerator, early investment accelerator. So he's got a fund. He's got this whole operation where he takes the growing Amazon sellers and then accelerates them.
Yeah.
So it's all about working. So now he created the very environment that he enjoyed himself.
Yep. Exactly. And it makes a ton of sense. And like, you find things that either drive you. Again, every experience we have, like you said, leads us to where we're going, whether we know it or not, whether we like it or not. It's just, for me, that much more important to have good experiences, or to have different experiences, to figure those things out faster. It's like the same thing we talked about a little earlier. The more money you have on advertising, the faster you can get the data points to make decisions. It's the same thing with learning experiences. The more experiences you have, the faster you're going to figure out what you like and what you don't like.
Yeah, and you've done one more thing, which is another language, because where you live, it's not English is not the native language. So my father used to say, every language you learn is a window opening to the world.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree. I think it's a very good point. And yeah, I'm fluent in Spanish. I've lived in Mexico for 6 years now. I also speak a little bit of Portuguese. That's where my mom's family is from. Unfortunately, I speak way more Spanish than Portuguese at this point, so I have a lot more learning to do there. But it's true. When you actually can communicate with people in their own language, it teaches you a lot culturally about how they think or how they approach things. And it does make a big difference on your experiences of what the world's like. I mean, going to France, for example, and being able to speak French is going to be different than going to France and speaking English. So
yeah, sense of humor, everything.
yeah.
Well, it's great conversation, Mike. Thank you for being here. So how can people reach you? Give us your contact information.
Sure. And first of all, thanks, Nick, for having me. I really appreciate it. It's been great speaking with you. The best way to get in touch with me is my email, mike@amzadvisors.com. You can also reach me at our website, amzadvisors.com. And yeah, feel free to reach out if you have any questions about how to build your funnel, about how to measure your customer acquisition costs or your customer lifetime value. These are all problems that we solve on a day-to-day basis for brands. And we're always looking for the ability to help other brands achieve success on the platform.
Great. Thank you, Mike. Thank you for being here.
Thank you again.
Before I wrap up, I want to remind everyone to visit www.sellcore.co/legends and mention Amazon Legends to get a free comprehensive audit and a $500 statement credit. It's time to conquer Walmart with Sellcore by your side. Thank you. And this brings us to the end of another episode, and I'll see you on the next one.
If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review the episode, and share it with someone you think would benefit from it too.